Let's continue here on Box to Row. We're joined by a gentleman in his second season as the head men's basketball coach at Clark Atlanta. The Panthers 20-4 on the season, 14-4 in SIAC play. Got a big game, as a matter of fact, a rivalry game on Saturday against Morehouse. And of course, Alfred Jordan joins us here. He's the head men's basketball coach of the Panthers. He joins us here on Box to Row. What's going on, Coach? Jordan, how are you?
I'm doing very well. First and foremost, I want to say thank you for allowing me to come onto your platform and to sit down and talk with me. We're in the mix of a very good season, after rebuilding from last year. And right now we're just enjoying the process, and we're taking all the ups and downs and the highs and lows that come with this season, and also in a very tough SIAC conference.
No doubt about it. You speak about the highs and lows. The highs, a 13-game winning streak. The low, it's just a low. It's just something that it happens. You've dropped a couple of games in the SIC. It's tough play. A loss last night to Miles, 61-58. Talk about sort of your thoughts on that game.
To me, that was the closest thing that we've been in this season as far as the championship environment from start to finish. I thought the officiating was amazing last night. I think Fred Watson, he had his guys prepared. We had our guys prepared. It came down to the last shot, which we missed. And, we had about 2 or 3 games this year when it came down to the last shot and we actually made it. And, you just go through your growing pains. And like I mentioned before, I would rather go through our growing pains now than to go through our growing pains in the SIAC tournament. But, the atmosphere last night in Birmingham was amazing. Both teams played at a very high level. I think that was probably one of the better played SIAC games all season. It should have been nationally televised if you ask me, but that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah. 13 straight wins prior to that. I mean, you really had, you have your team playing well, it's no doubt. But you guys must have been in a zone. I mean, it's hard to win 13 games in a row, particularly in conference.
Yes, our guys have been locked in since they got here in August. We have a lot of guys that have a chip on their shoulder, and we have 9 new guys in total on this roster. We started the season off with a very good win over a Division I school, Mercer College, and then after we beat Mercer, we had won 6 in a row. And, when everyone was singing the praises, I thought we were pretty much ahead of the schedule because, whenever you get a roster turnaround like we had, I thought it would take a little bit for us to gel. But, we gelled early, took a couple of roadblocks, and then, we went on that amazing 13-game stretch after the Christmas break. We all had a team meeting, and we just was talking about the values in the culture, because what happens when you're a part of a winning program, sometimes the outside chatter can get to you as a player on, you guys are winning, but what are your numbers? And, I always tell our guys, no one's going to remember a stat sheet, but they'll always remember a banner. And, once guys brought into that, we hit an amazing stride. And trust me when I tell you, we're far from done.
Alfred Jordan in his second season as the head men's basketball coach at Clark Atlanta. He joins us here on Box to Row. 8-20 last year. I mean, you talk about a turnaround. That's got to be one of the biggest turnarounds in the country. I mean, to your point, you're not done. Plenty of season left to be played, but you're already at 20 wins when you had 8 wins. You had 20 losses last year. You got 20 wins this year. Speak to that and sort of how the process of this turnaround.
Well, one of the famous quotes that I got from a coach I used to work with, he always used to say it's not about the X's and O's, and that a lot of the times it comes down to the Jimmies and the Joes. So I got the job last year. It was in September. So I had inherited my team that I had last year. And, kudos to those guys, because if you ever got a chance to watch us play last year, those guys played their hearts out for me. And, we came up short in those games because we didn't have guys that were used to being in situations where they might have had to take over and close out the game. I worked my tail off last year recruiting, and the recruiting class that I brought in this year, they fit the X's and O's. And, it's sometimes that, they're out there and I actually allowed them to play because of the trust and confidence that we have as players and coaches. And, I mean, the results are just showing.
Yeah, speak to some of the players. I mean, Chris Martin, obviously, I mean, he's a guy that had 20 points for you last night. He's averaging 18.8, points per game this year. One of the leaders, if not the leader, in terms of scoring in the SIAC. Speak to some of those players that you recruit. And what? Let me even before that. Let me preface by asking: is this really more of a newer team, or do you have quite a few holdovers from last year that are contributing to you this year?
Oh, it's a bunch of new guys. I can start with Chris. A funny story. Back in 2020, I actually was offered the head coaching job at Clark Atlanta, but then COVID hit, and once the season was canceled, we didn't move forward. And I actually had recruited Chris back then, and he actually stayed down with me through the entire process. And then, once in August it was made the decision that they wasn't going to have the season, he actually still came to Clark Atlanta, and we always kept in contact. So it became like a full circle moment for me to get the chance to coach him this year, his final year. And then, you have the Stewart twins, Andrew and Eli, that I actually coached with for a year when I was over at Morehouse as the associate head coach. And Jalen Naismith, point guard from New York, that when I was at the University of Arkansas Little Rock, I recruited him hard. Also, Shamani Fuller, big guy. He's a Western Michigan transfer, also a Bronx, New York guy that I was recruiting. And, a lot of these guys that we have now are almost full circle guys that I had relationships for 3 or 4 years. And, they came in, and Kyrie Kane, I can't speak enough about Kyrie Kane that we have from Georgia Highlands. I think he's probably the best defensive player in the country. And what he does for us is, absolutely amazing. I spent a lot of time last year in the Tennessee JUCO League recruiting Xavier Griffith, who is probably one of the best mismatch problems in the conference. And, my holdovers from last year, Desmond Perkins, he's been riddled with injuries this year, started the season out pretty hot for us, and hasn't played in quite a while. Jalen Williams, he's been accepting his role. And actually last night he had a good game. He had 9 points, 9 rebounds. And Demetrius Hedspeth, who's one of our glue guys, he's also brought into winning and not worrying about, how many minutes he plays. And whenever he steps on the court, he gives us everything that he has.
Alfred Jordan, again, the head men's basketball coach at Clark Atlanta. He joins us here on the program. What does it mean? Even before I talk about that, so you mentioned being at Little Rock. And then this is your second year. You mentioned COVID. You were going to take the job here or there at Clark. So did you go back to Little Rock after it didn't pan out with COVID? What happened in between that time of COVID and now you having the job, which of course you got the job last year at Clark?
Well, a lot of people didn't know I actually went a year without coaching. Half the country thought I was still at the University of Arkansas Little Rock. The other half of the country thought I was at Clark Atlanta. And actually I was in the house with the fam for a whole year. And when things were looking grim and like they weren't going to work out with Clark Atlanta University, I called my good friend Douglas Whittler, that is the head coach at Morehouse College. And it was almost like a surreal moment, because when we were both assistants prior to me leaving to go to the University of Arkansas Little Rock, we spoke almost daily about, when we both got a chance to be the head coaches at our alma mater. And, I had told him, I'm a free agent and I'm willing to come and volunteer. But he was saying, it's funny you called me, because I was calling to offer you my associate head coaching job. And, it was almost like a match made in heaven working together. We took our bumps and bruises in the first half of the season. Then, I was able to bring in 2 guys, Noah Morgan and Evan Williams. And we won 18 games in a row together at Morehouse. And, of course, after us having such a successful season at Morehouse, our next door neighbor, which is originally my home, Clark Atlanta University, they gave me that phone call to come back home.
I think that is so cool. We had Doug Whittler on the show, as a matter of fact, last week. I think that's really, really cool, to the point that you mentioned. Both of the schools are rivals. You're right there in Atlanta. You're at your alma mater. He's at his. You guys work together. I think that's really, really cool. Speaking about such, so tomorrow you are at Morehouse. Rivalry, big game there in the A. Speak to some of the challenges that the Maroon Tigers present.
Well, and this is no disrespect to any team in the conference. I always tell my guys our biggest challenge is ourselves. If we go in and we do exactly what we're supposed to do, I'm never concerned and I'm never worried. And I say that in the most humble way because I watch these guys put in the work and how hard they work on a daily basis. And throughout the season, most of the games, whenever we drop the game or whenever teams went on runs, a lot of the things was more so what we weren't doing opposed to what the teams were doing. And when you play against a rival, all bets go out the window. You just never know what can happen. You could flip a coin, we could be up 20, and then in the second half, you could flip a coin, they could be up 20. But I'm gonna knock on wood because we don't want that to happen tomorrow. But one thing about Coach Whittler, he's a Detroit guy. So with him being a Detroit guy, he's a Big Ten guy. And if you know anything about the Big Ten, they normally have teams that are length and they're big. And when I seen his recruiting class this year, I called him and I said, that's a Douglas Whittler team. And what they do very, very well with that length and that athleticism, they can pretty much switch 1 through 5, which is something that you don't normally see on this level. And when they switch 1 through 5, their fives can literally guard point guards. So, for us, it's pretty much trying to find a mismatch when they do switch and make sure if they don't do good switches that we attack them with slips and backdoor cuts and things of that nature. But the way that he has those two freshmen over there playing is absolutely amazing. And I always used to tell him, and I always used to tell, God bless the dead, Grady Brewer, they do a damn good job when it comes to getting high school freshmen from Atlanta that come in and make a major impact out the gate. Because Sed Taylor and DJ Mitchell, when I tell you, I pray every night that I don't have to see them for the next 3 years after this year. I think if that duo stays together, the great Tyrus Walker, that's a Morehouse alumni, he may get a run for his money because those two young fellas over there are amazing. And after we actually won the game here in Epps, I pulled them both to the side and I told them, stay the course. What a lot of people don't understand and don't realize, outside of this rival, me and Coach Whittler, that's like my brother. Like we talk every day, we exchange notes, we tell each other what we have to do. And I know that's probably not the hot take people want to hear when it comes to the rival, but I always pay my respects and my homage to him because what he did for me, I was in that space of not having a job. I'll forever be indebted to him. And I always say, if it's not us, why not them? We always rather keep those wins and those championships in the AUC.
Man, I think that is so cool. Last thought, and we really appreciate the time. Obviously, your accent leaves no doubt about where you're from. Okay, you're from NYC, no doubt.
Can't shake that accent,
which is fine. It's all good. Yeah. So tell us how I'd like to know how you ended up as a student athlete at Clark Atlanta, A, and then B, what does it mean to be the head coach at your alma mater?
So I was actually playing my high school basketball at Cardinal Hayes for the great Tom Murray. And, I was looking at a lot of the Division II offers that I had up in the tri-state area. And for myself, going to college meant more than just playing basketball. It was going to be something that I wanted to be able to experience and I wanted to be able to, remember for the rest of my life. And, when you accept the reality that you're not going Division I and you're not going to be in the NBA, I had a cousin that's a big time producer, Daryl Six Figure Branch, and he actually lived in Atlanta. And I started to see the way the music industry was moving and just the glitz and glamour of Atlanta from afar. And I actually went on a HBCU college tour, and I immediately fell in love with Atlanta. And I actually came here, and it wasn't even basketball. I eventually walked on my second year. And, I tell people all the time, when I had left and I went to the University of Arkansas, Little Rock, that was almost like leaving New York from high school to college again, because from age 18 to about, I think I was about 30, 31, I was in Atlanta. All I knew outside of Harlem, New York was Atlanta, Georgia. And having the opportunity to come home and to be the head coach at my alma mater, it means everything in the world to me. It's nothing like going to games, just like last night, which was a tough loss, driving home, but going into the house and being with my family every night. When I was at Arkansas Little Rock, it was that first year was, it was tough because, we struggled. We got the job similar to how I had it here my first year, where, we were losing and I was away from my family. We would FaceTime, but it's nothing like that warm embrace after games, being able to go home and see the family, walking out on the court, my daughter giving me a good luck kiss out of the stands, my son sitting at the end of the bench. So, it's bigger than just a game of basketball for me. A lot of people always say, oh, the success that you're having now, you won't be there for long. And, the reputation that you've been blessed to have as being a good recruiter. I tell people all the time, every job is not a great job. And, sometimes your circumstances can outweigh anything anyone can pay you. And being able to be with my family every day and also being able to be at home at Clark Atlanta University, it's almost to the point where one or two things is going to happen. My name is going to get embedded in the side of that court. When you walk inside of Epps Gymnasium, you're going to have to walk past my statue first.
Oh, man, that is absolutely awesome. Alfred Jordan, again, in his second season as the head men's basketball coach at Clark, joining us here on the program. The Panthers and the Maroon Tigers going to get it on tomorrow on the campus of Morehouse. Coach Jordan, this is our first time conversing, man. I really enjoy your enthusiasm, the conversation, your candor. I love the relationship that you and, having you spoke on it, you and Coach Whittler have. Continued success to you and the Panthers.
Yes, and it's so funny because I was kind of upset yesterday because I wanted to beat that 18-game winning streak. And, like I said, I have the twins over here that was with us at Morehouse when we won the 18 in a row. And one thing we always was echoing throughout the entire run was we won 18 games in a row and we did not make it to the national tournament. And what I'm trying to tell my guys is now you don't leave it into the favor of anyone to make a decision for you. If you want to go to the national tournament, you have to just win. And, one thing that I don't preach to my team, I don't preach conference championship. I preach national championship because the conference championship for me is the bare minimum because I put more pressure on myself at winning at Clark Atlanta University than anyone can ever put on me. And what we were trying to do and what I think we still can accomplish is we're trying to put ourselves in a position to where we get that automatic bid and we don't have to go through that gauntlet of the SIAC tournament and have to win that to get the guaranteed bid, because it's unfortunate the way the voting goes between our conference, the Sunshine State and the Gulf South conference, which are other good conferences, and they do have some respectable programs, and they do have the reigning defending champions in Nova Southeastern that went, I believe it was 36-0, and they're off to another amazing year. But, sometimes I just get a little confused where you have our school that's sitting 20-3. I believe West Georgia is also 20. Well, we're 20-4. West Georgia is 20-3. And Nova, I think, is 19-2. But then a regional ranking that come out and we'll be ranked 8th. So, for us in the HBCU conference, it's almost like, what else do we have to do? We can't control what those that we play do. The only thing that we can control is the people on our schedule and us winning. And I think that we've done enough this year and we've controlled what we controlled to get better considerations than what they have been giving us. And I hope that sometime down the road that the process will be changed, because you could be a top 25 team in the country but not be ranked in the top 8 in your region, which makes absolutely no sense. And it's basically a contradiction. And, on the D1 level, and, we go back to when I was at Morehouse, any Division I school that wins 18 games in a row and loses in the semifinals of their conference tournament and wins 20 games, that's an automatic bid. And, I always think about that year at Morehouse because I did want to be the first coach to win a championship at both Clark and at Morehouse. And I always think about that year, and I think that year has me coaching my guys even harder now because I've learned my lesson that the job is not done until you win everything you can possibly win.
Man, I appreciate you saying that. Very well said. We appreciate the time. Coach Jordan, best of luck.